Welcome to the program. On New Year's Eve, as fires raged up and down Australia's east coast, thousands of people around the New South Wales town of Lake Conjola were trapped in the path of an unpredictable firestorm. There was no road out of the town, no power, phone or internet access either, and the water supply was running out. It's only now that what happened in the chaos that night can be pieced together. Sean Rubenstein Dunlop and John Stewart from ABC Investigations report.
The RFS says there will be dangerous conditions for the south coast right across today, and that will put lives and homes in danger.
The afternoon before New Year's Eve. Extreme conditions are forecast on the New South Wales south coast the next morning.
It was certainly an extreme fire danger day.
The Rural Fire Service has sent crews to light a last-minute backburn in the bushland of Yatta Yatta behind Ian Stewart's home.
The conditions were not appropriate to be lighting a fire. It was almost like you could snap your fingers and the ground would have exploded and the trees would have gone up like a bomb.
The RFS was racing to protect the nearby towns of Conjola Park and Lake Conjola from a huge bushfire known as the Currowan Fire, tearing up the New South Wales south coast.
Crews were under the pump. They were working in less than ideal situations, and they were feeling the pressure to try and get that line in place and as much depth on that backburn in place before weather turned foul.
My son, in forceful terms, said if you light this fire, it's going to go all the way through this area here and out to the coast. Nothing will stop it. That's in a direct line to Conjola.
Ian Stewart took photos of crews lighting the backburn well into the night.
The reason we kept burning as late as we did was to finish that line off. To have any gap in that line was a weak point, and it's a gate that is left open for the actual main fire front to come through and get over.
After 3 a.m, crews pulled out because of falling trees and weather conditions started to turn. When the RFS drew up its plans for the day, deciding where to position its firefighters, it expected the backburn would protect Conjola, but that prediction was based on the wrong weather observations. After 9 a.m. on New Year's Eve, the catastrophe began to unfold, with 2 spot fires near the backburn. Mark Williams was running the RFS response to the Currowan fire.
They took hold very, very quickly. But what's not conclusive is whether the main fire or the backburn actually spotted out across the containment line. It is more than likely the main fire came through and went over our backburn in that area. The main fire was running with a head of steam.
The fire spread along power lines to the home of pig farmers Dee Veach and Rob Barker.
We didn't have the option to really leave. We had to stay and fight. We didn't even have time to release the animals out of some of the cages.
At 10:28 a.m, as the fire threatened homes, the RFS sent out its first emergency mobile alert to the area. Many residents across town didn't receive any warning that day.
Not one message came through on our phone telling us watch and act or leave the area now. No, we didn't get any warnings whatsoever.
At 11 a.m, a satellite captured the fire's path towards Conjola, and the RFS dispatched a team of firefighters. Strike Team Romeo was led by veteran Fire and Rescue Officer John Moore. The fire cut off the only road into Conjola. On the right of the highway here, Rob Barker and Dee Veach were trapped.
It took so quick. Within half an hour, we were completely surrounded by 60-foot flames just burning and then other spots erupting. It was terrifying. And after that, it just continued for hours. It seemed like hours and hours.
just started getting this sick feeling in my stomach.
From Conjola Park, Michelle Morales watched the fire racing in. Her partner of 14 years, Laurie Andrew, was defending his home across the highway from Robin D.
Yeah, that's Laurie's place for sure. Let's go.
Within minutes, the fire would be just around the corner from her block.
We had probably 10 minutes before the main fire hit Lakeside Drive. The fire was just starting to come down the hill and it picked up intensity. And this is where I saw the fire behaviour change. It started to crown coming downhill. It was throwing burning embers out and starting spot fires in advance of the main fire front.
Firefighter call to SA 43.
And that's when we also saw the gas balls in the air and they were igniting. The behaviour of that fire was something I haven't seen in 36 years of attending bushfires.
At the same time, residents in Conjola Park discovered something utterly frightening.
No water.
The water supply to parts of the town had dried up.
Because everyone's got their taps on. Not good enough. Yeah, nothing we can do. Apologise to the landowners.
John Moore's strike team was tied to the only hydrant they could find.
We were getting water, but not at the normal rate we'd fill the tank.
At 1 p.m, a southerly change brought a third fire front, and the bushfire created its own weather system, a so-called pyrocumulonimbus storm.
There was what I describe as houses just spontaneously catching on fire.
The firefighters' calls for assistance on the radio went unanswered as the South Coast's fire emergency overwhelmed the network. Power and phone lines cut out along the coast as well.
Evacuated the boat. House next door's on fire.
With no way out and no way of calling for help, tourists and residents in Conjola fled into the lake in boats and even cars. Former ACT Emergency Services Commissioner Peter Dunn was among them.
We went from having several strategies to evacuate, all of which led to going down onto the beach at Conjola, at Lake Conjola. And then these strategies gradually disappeared, literally in smoke. The lake was a scene of pandemonium.
The fire raged till late afternoon, obliterating 89 houses.
Oh, there's my old house. This one? Yep.
After it passed, residents surveyed the devastation.
Conjola, what a place to be.
Michelle Morales' partner, Laurie Andrew, hadn't survived.
When the fire came, it completely surrounded his place. Yeah, he couldn't have got out. Laurie was in amongst it, and then they'd run out of water, or something happened to the water, and the house was on, pergolas were on fire, so they were trying to put them out with towels. And then Laurie must have gone inside and he collapsed. You know, everyone feels his loss. And they just can't believe, we just keep saying we can't believe it. But you know, you do make a choice to stay.
Another two men, John Butler and Michael Campbell, were discovered in burnt-out cars and died. Police are now investigating the firestorm and the decisions around it for the coroner. The Royal Commission and State Bushfire Inquiry have taken evidence here as well. Separately, the RFS has completed its own investigation into the backburn, finding Conjola would have been ravaged by fire no matter what they did.
I don't believe there's going to be ever any ability for anybody to determine where that fire actually jumped exactly and what actually caused it. As I said, it's my personal opinion that I believe it was the main fire front that came through. I don't believe there's much else we can do in relation to that, but I certainly do empathise with everybody who's been affected.
Ian Stewart and his family will have to rebuild the home they spent decades creating. His community is considering legal action and wants an independent investigation into what he believes was an ill-judged backburn.
I think the approach so far of the RFS has been insulting to us. This fire was deliberately lit at a very dangerous time, just ahead of really significantly dangerous conditions. No resources were around to be able to deal with that.
I can certainly see that residents are traumatised from the event. It was a horrific event that they've lived through. It would have been really, really nice if we had a hell of a lot more firefighters on the ground. But again, that's working with hindsight. It's not working with what we actually knew at the time.
In the days after the firestorm, Peter Dunn was appointed by the community to lead its recovery. He was one of the former emergency chiefs who'd tried to warn the government last year that a horror fire season was coming.
I really felt that perhaps I'd been wasting my time, and that what I should have done was spent my time warning communities.
As the nation faces a reckoning over its Black Summer, this small community wants no other town to be unprepared and isolated in its time of greatest need.
The preparedness has to go to the things like making sure that there is independent power supply, making sure that there is adequate water for communities to fight fires themselves, to actually be self-reliant. We really have to invest in this.